Hey, Stock Miles here again, and I have been to Bowling Ball Beach on the Northern California coast, a very remote, hard to find place where there's some cool rock formations and you can only get these shots at low tide. I've been there three times. Three times. Horrible weather, fog, rain, can't see it, wind. Sometimes I got there too late. The rocks are disappearing under the tide. So I have one shot that I got 2.5 years ago. And I, like a lot of those shots, you say, hey, let's turn this into black and white. That could look cool. Make it artistic. Well, after 2.5 years, I decided to go into Lightroom, see what I could do with this photograph. And that's what I'm going to show you today. Using practically all the tools available in Lightroom, I was able to pull this photograph out and make it, at least artistically, something pretty cool. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so here we have a picture of Bowling Ball Beach up in the remote part of Northern California. It's really hard to get to, and you can only get these rocks at low tide. So the day we were there, of course, it was raining, foggy, pretty ugly. But I'm going to try to make some sort of art out of this and rescue this photograph. So let's begin. First of all, I've noticed that the horizon's a little bit off. I'm going to go to the crop menu, and I'm just going to turn it a little bit and straighten out that horizon. There, that looks pretty good. Now the next thing is something I always do with Lightroom 7.5 Classic or CC. I hit the auto button because that uses machine learning and artificial intelligence, and they'll actually tone the photograph based on some data that's put in there from thousands of photographs. I kind of like what I see here. I want to maybe push the dehaze up a little bit, maybe to 9. If you go too far with the dehaze, look what happens. It really gets ugly. So I'm going to go back here and just keep it somewhere around 9. If you can't get that exactly at 9, you can always just type in here, and you could type 9 in there, and you're good. The vibrance I'm pretty happy with at 13. The clarity, I'm just going to pop that up a little bit because I always like a little bit more clarity and just a little bit more contrast. I think I'll drop the blacks down a little bit. Now we've got an okay photograph. If you convert this to black and white, it could look good, but I still don't like all this kind of white dead space up there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to make this a little bit bluer, as if there was a blue sky above this haze. So the way I'm going to do that is get a brush from my brush tool, hit new. I'm going to double click on effects to reset all of these temperature and exposure and all the sliders, and I'm going to hit just the O key, which is going to give me a green field of where this brush is actually going. I want my size to be fairly good size. I'm going to drop that up to about 24. A feather, I want it to feather quite a bit because I don't want it to be too harsh between the sky and the land. I want it to be at 100% flow, and density I'm going to put at about 50%, thereabouts. All right, so now I'm going to be prepared to paint, and I'm going to drop this temperature slider back a little bit and make it blue. So here we go. So now I'm going to paint, and you'll see that it's coming in green. This is my mask. This shows me what I'm painting. Okay, it doesn't exactly, it's not going to be green. Notice that I've kind of gone over a little bit here. I can fix that in a second. So if I hit the O key, you'll see that now my sky is somewhat blue, and it's actually bluer out at sea than it is where it's pretty foggy inland here, but some did leak over. So all I have to do is drop my brush size a little bit, and I'm going to hold down the Option key on Mac, the Alt key on PC, and that just erases. That'll erase some of that blue and give me back what I wanted in the coast. Okay, so just take it like that, and it's just gonna take a minute to catch up, and all that blue will be gone. That's okay if you got a little bit on the edge up there, because actually there's no real definition between the sky and the mountain. But my sky is getting bluer as it goes out to sea, and that's exactly what I wanted. A little bit more blue up here and across the top. All right, so now you can see the fog is just on the coast. It could be a really nice day out at sea, and this is going to give these rocks a little bit of direction. So your eye's going to go to the rocks, and in the next few steps, I'm going to bring the rocks out, and then it's going to be kind of framed with this nice blue sky. Okay, so here comes the art part. Remember, we're making art here, not journalism. So I'm going to go to split toning, and as that panel comes down, I'm going to slide the hue. As I pull this up, you'll see if I click in that little box right there that my highlights come up. So what I want to do is change the color of the highlights, and I'm going to put my eyedropper here, and I want to go over to somewhere in the neighborhood of around, I want it to be bluish, say 215, 217, something like that. And I want my saturation to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 29. Now, if you can't get right to 29, if you want to go to the exact numbers, you can type those in. So if I wanted to do 215, I could type that in. And that will give me a little bit of blue in the highlights. It's kind of a blue color cast to the whole thing. But now I want to offset that a bit. So I'm going to go down to my shadows, and I want to bring the shadows over here, and I want to kind of get somewhere down in the 85 range, right about there. That's good. And I want to bring this saturation way down, somewhere around 5. There you go. 6. That's okay. So now what you have is two colors. You have blue in the shadows and a kind of a brownish, pale brown, blue in the highlights and a pale brown in the shadows. And right now that doesn't look so great, but what it's going to do when I get through with some of the lighting effects here, it's going to make these rocks look very dramatic. Okay, with the split toning looking pretty good, let's try and see if we can emulate the fact that there may be some sunlight peeking through this foggy blue sky up here. And so what I'm going to do is take a circular radial tool, clear out all the effects so that there's nothing there. I'm going to draw a radial, angle it so that it covers just the rocks. All right. These radials, you can shape them any way you want to. I don't want it to cover anything but these rocks, and maybe not all the rocks, just where the sun would probably come through a little hole in that fog up there. So maybe something like this. Maybe rotate it a little bit more. There we go, something like that. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's good. All right, bring this down a little bit. Whoops. Where am I here? Make sure I grab my circle, get it down a little bit. Good. All right, so now I'm going to take and increase my whites to brighten that up a bit. Maybe increase the shadows a little bit and drop my blacks down just to, not so it doesn't look too washed out. Then down here in this little box, you have an X across it. That is color. Now what I'm going to do is inside the circle, and I want to make sure before I do that that I have invert. What will happen is whatever I do inside the circle will affect only inside the circle. If I uncheck invert, it'll affect everything outside the circle. So now I've got my whites and my blacks. I'm going to take this box and I'm going to change the color to something of a sunset type color, sunrise perhaps. You know, this was taken in the middle of the day, but that's okay. So maybe come over here and drop the saturation down just a tiny bit. So there's a little bit of glow on the top of these rocks. That's a little too green. There you go. That's looking more like it. All right, so that looks good. I'm going to bring the saturation down just a tiny bit more. And bring it up. Okay, let's have a look. So this is before and this is after. It's just a minor change, but it brought all this really interesting kind of warm light in on these rocks. So that's about all I would do in terms of color and special effects. So there's only a couple other things I do with this particular photograph. Now that we've done this, I would go up here and get rid of these birds up here. Not, I don't think these birds. There is a bird right here and one over here, but I wouldn't really worry too much about that. And that's about it. So I think we've got what we set out to do, and a really nice rendition of this photograph that turned out to be pretty good considering it was a terrible photograph to start with. So here's the before and here's the after. Okay, same day, same weather. So let's apply the same things we learned in the previous photograph to this photograph. It's got some potential. You've got some color in these sails up here. It's a nice ocean. The sky could be better, but let's take a look. Applying those same principles, here's what we've got. Big difference, see? So that's easy to do in Lightroom. Here's the before and the after side by side, as you can see. Huge difference. Rescued this photograph, made it look a lot better, and I think you'll see that just these simple techniques that we used can bring life back into a photo that appears to be a throwaway. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can always find me on docmiles.com and learn about our tours and all the other stuff that I'm doing. I'm teaching here for the National Park Service, as well as doing some photo walkabouts, and have some great times here. So if you're in the San Francisco area and you want to see some great places, just look me up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.